What's up guys, I'm BTC. Torbjorn just got a massive rework, so I'm going to show you all the stats, damage, cooldowns, and everything else you need to know. Since the beginnings of Overwatch, Torbjorn has always been considered at best a niche character, and at worst a troll or throw pick. All of that has changed with the new rework. Torbjorn is significantly stronger than he ever has been before. The hero has also shifted from a more stationary defensive character into one that is much more mobile and offensive. This is what Torbjorn's old abilities look like, but much of that has changed. The old ultimate, the armor pack, and scrap collector passive are now completely gone. The turret also functions quite differently. Here's a quick look at the new skill page after the rework. In addition to this guide, I also made a myth-busting video that demonstrates all the interactions that Torbjorn has with other players. So after you're done watching this, make sure to go check that out. There'll be a link for it down below. We're going to start with his primary attack, the Rivet Gun. It's what's known as an arc projectile, meaning that it has a travel time and there's a downward curve to the projectile the further out it moves. The damage is 70 per hit, the projectile speed is 70 meters per second, and the rate of fire is 1.67 per second. His alternate fire attack is the Rivet Burst. This is a burst projectile that has a spread similar to other shotgun attacks, but again, it's a projectile, so there's a travel time. The damage is 12.5 per pellet, with a total of 10 pellets per attack. The fall-off range begins at 7 meters and will max out at 20 meters. At maximum fall-off, each pellet only does 3 damage. Torbjorn has a secondary weapon called the Forge Hammer. It deals 55 damage per hit to an enemy and can repair 50 health per hit to the turret. The attack speed is 1.25 per second. Torbjorn's first ability is Overload. When activated, it grants 150 bonus armor and 30% speed buff to attacking, reloading, and movement. The duration is 5 seconds and the cooldown is 12 seconds. After the duration, any remaining armor from Overload is removed. His next ability is Deploy Turret. When activated, Torbjorn will throw a turret a short distance. The turret will then automatically build itself over 3 seconds. It will deal 14 damage per hit with an attack speed of 4 per second. A new function of the turret is that you can direct its aiming by hitting an enemy with your primary attack. However, this has no effect if you hit an enemy barrier. The fully built turret has 250 health. The cooldown is a little more complicated than normal. After being thrown, the ability will go on a 5-second cooldown. If the turret has not been in combat for the last 3 seconds, then Torbjorn can create a new one. Alternatively, you can also use the self-destruct, but this will apply an additional 5-second cooldown. The only time you ever really want to do this is when you want to get rid of the turret but don't want to place a new one right away. If, however, the turret is destroyed while in combat, whether by an enemy or Torbjorn using self-destruct, then the turret will go on a 10-second cooldown. Torbjorn's ultimate is Molten Core, and while it shares the same name as the old ultimate, it functions completely different. When activated, Torbjorn goes into a special attack mode where his normal attacks are replaced by his claw arm that will now shoot out globs of lava. Each glob of lava will deal 25 direct damage to anything it hits and create a large pool of lava on the ground below it. Torbjorn can create 10 pools of lava and each one will last for 10 seconds. Enemies standing in the lava, or even several meters above it, will take approximately 130 damage per second with an additional 60 damage per second, specifically damaging armor. This functions as 2 separate damage over time attacks, and the armor-specific damage cannot remove any other kind of health. The damage is not done all at once, but it's broken into increments of 25 damage per tick. Placing multiple pools of lava in the same spot will not stack or increase the damage in any way. Now I'm going to go over some tips to help you be more effective with his attacks and abilities. Torbjorn's primary attack is strong at short and medium range, dealing 140 damage criticals, and there's no fall off to it. However, because it's an arc projectile, the attack can be inconsistent and difficult to use at long range. At medium and long distance, make sure you're aiming in front and above the target. The alternate fire is very strong close range and incredibly powerful against larger targets like Reinhardt and Hammond. The spread is narrow enough where it can be used at even 10-meter distance and still hit much of the target. However, the spread and fall-off damage makes using it further than this distance nearly worthless. Torbjorn's Forge Hammer has extremely limited usage after the rework. You no longer need it to build the turret, as it now does so automatically, and often repairing the turret is a waste of time since you can simply throw out another one. Using it as an attack is also incredibly bad, as the Rivet Burst alternate fire will always do more damage at close range. It's also not effective to switch to the hammer when trying to reload the rivet gun, as there is a delay after switching prior to being able to attack again. Taking all of this into consideration, even though a quick melee will do less damage than the Forge Hammer, it's always the better choice for quick burst damage when the rivet gun needs to reload. The new ability Overload is effectively a mini version of the old Ultimate Molten Core. For 5 seconds, Torbjorn is much faster and stronger than he normally is. You don't want to spam this ability every time it's off cooldown, but you should be using it quite often. It has both offensive and defensive uses. For offense, it is incredibly strong at bursting a target that's close by holding down your alternate fire, and the bonus movement speed is also good for chasing an enemy. On the defensive side of things, the 150 armor can keep you alive through enemy burst damage quite well. For example, if you see a hook from an enemy Roadhog flying towards you, and you don't have time to get out of the way, you can burn your Overload, and that bonus armor will keep you alive through Roadhog's follow-up damage. The same goes for Doomfist and his combo. After you get hit with the Seismic Slam, burn the Overload, and you'll easily survive the rest of his combo. In general, the bonus armor and movement speed is just really good for keeping Torbjorn alive whenever he's in danger. Just burn it, get that temporary boost, and get out of there. The changes to the turret are some of the most significant in determining Torbjorn's new playstyle. No longer is Torbjorn a stationary defensive character. Instead, the turret can be used in a much more aggressive way. It should not be treated like the invaluable construct that it was before, but rather as bonus, disposable damage. On attack, you can use the turret to provide additional pressure on the defenders in the choke point. In some maps like Hanamura or King's Row, you can even throw the turret into a position where it will provide flanking damage on those defenders. And even if it gets destroyed rather quickly, it still functions as a valuable distraction. The defenders absolutely have to deal with the turret as quickly as possible, otherwise it will become a threat. That means that the defending DPS needs to shift their focus away from the choke point, allowing your team to be more aggressive and to push through with less resistance. On defense, you will always want to have the turret set up before the attackers get there. Because Torbjorn can now throw the turret instead of simply placing it in front of him, this opens up a massive variety in where you can place the turret. Many spots that before were impossible to get to without the aid of a Symmetra teleporter are now available to Torbjorn. Keep in mind that the turret can only be placed on a surface that a player would normally be able to walk on. If a player would slide off of it, then the turret will as well. While it's still going to be beneficial to place your turret behind a Reinhardt or Orisa barrier, the new disposable nature of the turret means that it's not really required anymore. After any failed push by the attackers, even if the turret is in a spot where it can be repaired, it's a much better idea to simply relocate it to another spot. The attackers will know where it was from the previous failed push, and leaving it in the same spot will make it easier for them to zero in and destroy it. But if you move it after every single push, then they have to go and find it every single time, allowing it to deal more damage. A strong general strategy whenever you're in the middle of a fight and your turret is available is to try to throw the turret behind the enemy that you're fighting. This will put them in the very bad position stuck between you and that turret that is currently building. Any time they waste by turning around to attack the turret leaves them open to your attack, and if they choose to ignore it, then the turret is going to get free damage from behind. Now, if you're playing against the Torbjorn and you find yourself in this very spot, the best solution is to simply back up so that both the Torbjorn and the turret are in front of you. Torbjorn's new Molten Core is one of the best area denial and anti-stall abilities in the entire game. The lava pools do an absolutely massive amount of damage, and standing in one for even a few seconds will kill most any character in the game. In fact, you don't even need to stand in it. Enemies that are several meters above the lava pool will still take damage, so take this into consideration whenever you're trying to place it. And because of that, it makes it impossible for most characters to jump over the lava unscathed. There are some obvious strategies with this ultimate and using it on the payload or on a capture point, but it's particularly strong as an anti-stall on the 2 capture point maps. Ultimates like May's Freezing Field can lock down a capture point, and Hammond's Minefield can block off at least one of the spawn doors, preventing the defenders from getting out. Torbjorn, however, can completely lock down the defender team and prevent them from leaving their spawn entirely unless they have some special ability to get past it. When the defenders are dragging out a match and stalling, putting lava in front of both of the spawn doors will all but guarantee that your team captures that point. When used against enemy barriers, the globs of lava will bounce off and hit the floor and then create the pool. If a barrier is close enough, it will take damage at about 130 per second, just like any player. A good tactic when dealing with a Reinhardt, or especially an Orisa, is to aim above the barrier so that the globs of lava land behind it. This is obviously going to be more effective against Orisa since the barrier is in a fixed location. If the enemy is near a wall, you can aim behind the Orisa or the Reinhardt and bounce the lava off the wall so that it lands at their feet and behind the barrier. Molten Core is also extremely effective against an enemy bastion. While there are some ultimates that can be effective at dealing with an entrenched bastion, Molten Core seems to be one of the best. It can charge very quickly, can be launched from far away, and is almost guaranteed to deal with the bastion almost every single time. Even if he manages to get away from the pools of lava, he will take so much damage that your teammates should be able to easily finish him off. So now you should know all the fundamentals of the new Torbjorn. And as a reminder, if you want to know how his abilities will interact with the other players, make sure to check out that Mythbuster video I made. The link for that is down below. I'm also working on a Torbjorn versus every hero counter video that will show you who Torbjorn is best to use against and who will be best against him. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.